Granddad never mentioned that there were men as dark as this. Wow, look at that nose. He's just like a pig. He's a monster! Hut!
In today's episode, I'm joined by an Asian man who wrote the article a while back called An Open Letter to Asian Men of the West, which discussed how Asian men should view themselves in the dating world. Now, you're not showing your face for privacy reasons, but nevertheless, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Okay. So my first question is, what made you decide to write this article?
I wrote this article because of my own personal experience and transformation that was really pronounced as I was dating. I started out very, similar to other Asians, very typical. Skinny, lanky, not tall, not short, not great hair, not good body language or style or any of that stuff. And so I saw very, very little success in dating when I was in my formative years, especially in college. But then something I would say magical happened, and it's that I started to work out. Which sounds very small, but actually it had such a significant impact on my life. I gained about 40, 50 pounds. A lot of it was muscle mass. And that shift brought about other changes in my life, like starting to care about my appearance, not just body, but also style, hairstyle, being like embracing the vanity of our looks, which I used to condemn, but all of a sudden it was fine. And my luck in dating there was like a direct correlation. And so I wrote the article almost as a call to Asian men that, whatever the circumstances or the cards that you've been dealt, you can do something about your situation to improve. Not just whether it's dating or other aspects of your life. Like, a lot of it is in your control.
Okay. So I guess my next question would be, like, what made you decide, what was that point where you decided to transcend your race and say, you know what, I'm going to change things?
Actually, it was brought about very fortuitously. It wasn't a firm decision on my part. So it was basically due to the fact that I was living in the U.S. for the first 22 years of my life, and then after I played basketball, right? I played competitive basketball my whole life, and actually that's what kept me very skinny. But when I went to Asia, I ended up moving to Asia after college, and what happened was, in Asia they're just not very good at basketball, and I was getting really frustrated playing. So ultimately, I quit basketball, and it just so happened that I needed another activity, and I didn't really know anyone else in Asia, and there was a gym next to where I lived, so I just started going to that gym. So it was very fortuitous, but after 1, 2, 3 months, I saw immediate results, and after I saw those results, that's when I was like, oh shit, this is tangible. And it obviously felt good to get that, instant feedback from yourself and from the mirror.
Okay. So in your article, you reference white male, Asian female, which we all know is highly controversial at this point. But back then, what were your thoughts on white male, Asian female? And how have your thoughts evolved since writing that article?
Well, I guess there are 3 phases. The first phase is that I never really gave it thought before, I'd say during my formative years. And a lot of that's probably due to the fact that I myself was very whitewashed at that time, growing up. My mom dated a lot. My mom's Asian. She dated a lot of white guys. So I grew up with a lot of white guys, just seeing them. And it was normal to me. I never thought anything of it. what changed for me was not so much the white male, Asian female controversy, quote unquote, but it was almost like a lot of Asians complain about Hollywood and the fact that, there's not equal representation. And, Jackie Chan only gets to do karate scenes in Rush Hour, but he never gets the girl. Or the guy who plays the main character in the movie 21, which was based on an Asian guy, in the movie they made him white. And there was a lot of complaints and pushback from Asians about those type of things that were happening in Hollywood. And I guess the view that I eventually took on was that Asians should stop bitching about these things. Because it was almost as if they were bitching like they needed affirmation from Hollywood in order for them to feel like they had self-worth. Like I saw that as a connection, and I saw that as a negative connection because it meant that Asians it's like they were putting white people above them by worshiping Hollywood and making Hollywood need to have Asians, represented in the media for their life to be able to take off. And what I wrote about at that time about transcending race was that you don't need to care about those things. You can detach from the need for, the guy, the main character in 21 have to be an Asian guy. Because that has no impact on your life. You have control over your own life and your own circumstances. And you can have a successful life, and you can be someone who's successful without having to complain about all those things in Hollywood. So that's why I said when you see a white guy with an Asian female, I said this in the article, it's not like that means nothing to your life, because that doesn't mean that you can't get an Asian girl. Or that doesn't mean that you can't sleep with a girl from a different race. But then, that was about 5 years ago I wrote that article, actually. Yeah. And I was glad that you discovered it. In recent time, actually, my views have shifted. I still believe in the importance of transcending your race and not being held by the constrictions of what people stereotype your race to be, or always having to defend your race. I really don't like that. However, I live in a very metropolitan area back in the U.S. now, and I see white male, Asian female relationships all the time, again. And I would say that my views have evolved to the extent that now I can see the self-hate that Asian women probably have about themselves, and that may be a contributing factor to why they date white. Especially the ones who only date white guys. I can definitely see that being the case. However, I do have a little bit of empathy because, if they grew up here and they were exposed primarily to white culture, a lot of it is just circumstantial in the fact that this is where they grew up.
So, just to recap, your original thought was, yeah, this was an issue. Then it became, it's not that big of a deal, just do you. And then now it's like kind of in the middle where it's like, you still should be doing what your best, but yeah, there's an issue here.
Yeah, I would say that's a good summation of it. There's, it's tough because I do believe that, yes, you should do your best. And let's say you're an Asian guy, whatever race you are, and you want to attract an Asian woman. But let's say she's only going for, white guys. And you're doing your best, and you're living your best life, and you're working out, and you're looking great, and all those different things. And she still only likes white guys. I was very whitewashed before, too. But it wasn't like someone hitting me over the head and educating me that, hey, you're wrong, or you're whitewashed, or you need to embrace your Asian culture. It was almost like it was a process of legitimate self-discovery where I had to be the one steering that ship. And I eventually made my own decision to go to Asia and live there and learn the language and embrace, my roots. So I guess that's the issue, is that even though you want to do your best, and at the same time there may be a little bit of self-hate with these Asian girls, for instance, it's hard to just educate them and say, hey, you're wrong, because it's kind of improbable that would be the impetus to affect change.
Okay. You mentioned before, like, you had a little bit of empathy for Asian women. When it comes to what they talk about, which is yellow fever or the objectification of Asian women, do you sympathize with them? Do you empathize with them on that issue?
No, I don't. I don't at all. And I guess I'm coming from the perspective of, be a realist about your life and about life in general and about society and about how people have different tastes and what people have a different, like, the reason they're desired, the reason there's yellow fever, sure, a lot of it may be media based, but nowadays, you don't really see the docile Asian woman played in the media. So I don't think it's coming from that. I think that, I believe that Asian women are intrinsically, objectively beautiful. Maybe more objectively beautiful than other races. But also, B, you kind of fetishize or have fantasies or have preferences for people that you're not used to being with. So I know a lot of Asian guys who probably really like white girls with blonde hair. And it's probably because in Asia there just aren't that many white girls with blonde hair. And it's the same exact thing. You're creating a fever effect where you're desiring, a certain type. I wouldn't call that either racist. I think that's BS, that people are getting offended about that stuff. So yeah, that's my answer to that. Like, whatever you're not really used to or accustomed to, whatever's exotic to you, like, a lot of people will gravitate towards that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Asian women who try to condemn Asian men for calling out white male, Asian female?
I would say that that's probably a little bit of self-hate. Wait. You know what? I'm trying to think how to answer this one. Can you lead it in a little bit?
Do you get angry? Do you feel as though there's something wrong with Asian women condemning Asian men? Do you empathize with why they're angry at Asian men for calling this out? Like, what's the first reaction that you get when you see an Asian woman saying Asian men need to stop criticizing Asian women for dating white men?
It's, there's two parts. I would say that on an individual scale, or on an individual level of judgment, I think that they're not wrong. People should be able to have their own preferences and date whom they like, right? But I guess when you're painting by the numbers and you see that, there's a lot of, for instance, especially in the U.S. and especially in these big metropolitan areas, a lot of white male Asian females that, one, it's a little bit, let's say, institutional or systemic. I mean, you probably have to look at the power dynamics between why that couple that type of couple is flourishing. But also B, it's a little bit sad that when that happens, and this has happened in my own family a bunch, you kind of dilute your own people, and eventually the Asianness will be left out of the family. Because let's say you procreate with a white guy and you're Asian female, and that baby's going to be half white living in the U.S., which is predominantly white, and they'll probably grow up to date white people as well. And then 3-4 generations in, and there's no more hints of that Asian gene. And I think on like a legacy level, with ancestors, which Asians are really find important to them, that's sad.
So I guess you're just overall concerned about the disappearance of Asian culture in America when you see this issue.
Yeah, because it speaks to the fact that it speaks to the fact that white culture is, I guess, still the norm and worshipped, and that a lot of these Asian females, for instance, they want to be a part of that, and they're okay to kind of do away with their own culture or their family's culture, which have come from literally, thousands of generations of people. They're like the last line of defense, and then suddenly they're just going to get wiped out. It's happened in my own family. I've got cousins who have their own kids now, and these kids are like totally white, and you can't tell that there's a single Asian, like a hint of Asian in them. And I guess that would be a concern.
Okay. Do you think that Asian women are willing to listen and be held accountable for their racism and hypocrisy?
I think that Asian women are willing to listen, be held accountable.
Yeah.
I mean, that I would say that I'm not in a position to speak for other people in terms of what they're willing or not willing to do.
Okay.
I do think though that, and I do want to really emphasize this point, that I do not think that it's best practice for, let's say, you or me or other people to actually go about and quote unquote educate them and call them out. Because in your own life, how many, like, let's say you're wrong, like, who likes to be called out for being quote unquote wrong? Or, it's just, that's not usually the way to affect change. I mentioned this earlier, the process of initiating your own self-discovery, I think, is really important. And on another, maybe we'll get to this, but I feel like if Asian men or if other men want to succeed in the dating game, especially with Asian women, I don't think that the best way to go about it is by quote-unquote trying to educate these girls. Like, pointing these issues out doesn't make you any more attractive to them.
Okay. This is actually where I wanted to bring up a talking point just to add to the conversation. And it's interesting that you mentioned that educating the opposition is the wrong way to go about it, because that is part of my talking point. Here's what I mean. Amped Asia is a magazine that's like the Maxim of Asia, or Asian women, I should say. And Cindy Young is a writer there. In 2014, she wrote an article titled 8 Dating Mistakes You're Making with Asian Women. Some of the things she said was, don't tell me you love Asian women or that all your exes are Asian. Work on your value as a human being. Meet me through friends. So she has no problem educating everybody else, telling men what they can and can't be attracted to, just entitled city. The narrative changes in 2019, obviously, and she writes an article saying why Asian dudes need to stop hating on white male Asian female, basically saying there's nothing to see here. White men and Asian women like each other. It's natural. And here's a quote. You need to admit that Asian girls dating white men isn't what's causing your dating problems. The real problem is you lack mate value. So, again, somehow trying to find a way to spin it and put the blame on the men. I got an email from them as a subscriber to their email, Amped Asia, saying that Asian guys need to stop going online and attacking Asian women for dating white guys, and this needs to stop. What concerns me about seeing all this is like, all right, you're trying to educate people and telling them how to live their lives. That's one thing. But you're Amped Asia. Your whole business is trying to sell dreams to men that can't attain them. So, like, you see this as bad for business. You see these Asian models who don't want to get criticized at all and are used to being worshipped. If they feel as though you're criticizing them, then they'll go away. If the fans that you can't get anymore are starting to wake up, realize that they can't get these girls because of their race or whatever, like, that's bad for business. So you're trying to calm everybody down to keep your pockets, I guess, big, while educating people that you don't want to date at all in the first place. So I understand, I guess my point is that I understand, like, okay, it's hard to critique the opposition and say what they would and wouldn't do. But when it gets to the point where they're doing what we can't do, and then now all of a sudden they want to, like, play the victim, like, for me personally, I have a problem with that, especially when I feel like it's from the sense of being exploited. You get what I'm saying?
Well, I guess it depends on what you want to do. I mean, on an individual basis, like, are you, not you, but like you generally, men, trying to educate women to affect, social change, for instance? Or are you just trying to get laid? And are you just trying to, or get a relationship, or just do better with women overall? And if it's the latter, then obviously trying to quote unquote educate them. I always said that you can't spark attraction from above the neck, meaning like women, like using logic and trying to get them through their brain. That's not the answer. I guess I understand what you're saying, that they're doing the same thing back, right?
Yeah.
And that's the hypocritical part.
Yeah. And it's like, it just comes to a matter of, at least for me personally, I look at this and I'm saying, you're not going to tell men that you're not interested in how to live their lives and expect them not to clap back when they see that even when they follow your advice, which is terrible, that there are no results. You get what I mean? Like, date who you want. I don't care if an Asian woman dates a white guy personally. But when you start playing that game of pointing the finger to everybody else, when it's clearly that there's an issue with you, and again, you're targeting men that are not even in the radar no matter what they do, like, that's when I feel personally like there needs to be something that needs to be said. You get what I'm saying?
To be honest, I don't think her advice was bad. I understand that it's hypocritical, and they're the ones now trying to, it's very entitled, sure, certainly. That first article you mentioned, like, this is what you need to do to date me. I hate that shit too. But, like, women will always have the upper hand in dating.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've learned to realize is that some things are just the way they are. And it's hard to battle back against them. So I'm a very, very staunch realist. And so let's say that Asians, like, we take that to its logical conclusion that women in general always will have the upper hand in dating. Then if you want to, reach for those stars, you need to do what you need to work on yourself so that you're at that level. Like I said, it goes back to your initial intention. Is it to get the girl, or is it to, I guess, affect social change, or to point out that they're wrong? It all depends what you're trying to do. But what I was trying to do back in my day was I was just trying to get better with women. And instead of trying to call them out and say, hey, you should like me because of X, Y, Z, or you've been indoctrinated and you have all this self-hate, you just don't realize it, I knew that won't ever work to get them to be attracted to me. So I had to do the things that I knew women like. They like a guy who's, has good style, who's a bit stronger, who's not this, tiny little dweeb. And I to this day, I believe that that's truly important.
Do you think that Asian women don't find men attractive, or do you really think that that's overblown?
Do I believe that Asian women don't find who attractive?
Asian men attractive, or do you think that that's overblown?
That's definitely overblown. I lived in Asia for a significant amount of time, and obviously Asian men will have no problem there. Here in the U.S. and here in the West, like, I guess I don't worry about this generation because a lot of Asian kids, younger than, let's say, I want to say 35, probably a little bit younger, their parents are first generations, which means that they still have very close ties to Asia and that kind of culture. And because of that, even though they grow up now with white people and they probably speak English way better than they speak their own native tongue, there will be that connection. And I feel like a lot of Asian men will still have no problem. What I worry about is once the dilution happens, when the new generations come along and they're just so far removed from Asian culture that more power plays can come into effect, where Asian men are no longer desirable to their kids and to their kids' kids.
So, you think that if the closer they are to their culture, Asian women, the more likely that they'll find Asian men attractive?
Definitely.
Okay.
Think of the Asian girls who their parents were first generation, or their first generation. The parents immigrated here, right? And all their friends are Asian. They're mostly dating an Asian guy too. But let's say you have an Asian girl like that. There are plenty of examples in my own personal life of the token Asian girl, for instance, who went to high school and college and all her friends were white, right?
Mm-hmm.
They probably had less connection to their heritage, and most likely, or more often than not, they're probably going to be dating or gravitating towards white guys. Mm-hmm. And even for me, when I was growing up, I was that token Asian kid in school. And so I also gravitated more towards white girls when I was growing up.
So going a little bit more into the idea of cultures changing perceptions of race, do you think that white male, Asian female is more common in the U.S. than it is in other countries? Why or why not?
I can only speak for places where I've been, right?
Uh-huh.
And I spent most of my life either here in the U.S. or in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
I guess from what I've seen in my experience is that you're getting a lot of like Mark Zuckerberg, Priscilla Chan kind of couples when white male, Asian female couples come into play. And what I mean by that is you get like the nerdy white guy with the equally nerdy Asian girl to complement each other. I haven't seen too many like really good-looking Asian girls with white guys here or in Asia, especially in Asia. I think that a lot of white guys, they go to Asia because they think that it's going to be like free pussy land. And then what I found out in my experience and just witnessing over the course of my time in Asia was that it was mostly nerdy white guys, and by white guys I mean from Western countries like the U.S., Canada. I guess you could also grow up in not London really, but Australia. These white guys who were coming were really nerdy, and you could just tell everything about them. And they were dating really nerdy Asian girls in Asia. I saw much better looking Asian girls with European guys, however. And that may be because, I guess, not to generalize, but at least the expats who go to Asia that are from Europe, they tend to dress better, look better overall. Does that answer that question?
Yeah. I guess it is more common, I guess, over here, but it's not that they're dating the top of your opinion. They're dating like low value white men.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you're going to see, I guess, in the metropolitan areas. At least in my experience, I can only speak from what I've seen personally. Have I seen beautiful Asian American women with white guys here in the U.S.? Yes, definitely. But I have, in my experience, to reiterate, that's been the exception rather than the rule.
Okay. How do you think that calling out this, because you've been against, I guess, pointing this racism out to Asian women, how do you think that this negatively impacts the whole conversation and men who want Asian women in general?
I guess it negatively impacts it because it's like, imagine imagine someone calls you out for your own hypocrisy, and most people, just human nature, aren't willing to listen to that or accept that, and you end up stoking more flames and adding more fuel to that fire. I don't think that's necessarily the right way to go about it. And again, that's why I said transcending race is so important. Mm-hmm. And instead of focusing on racial dynamics, just fucking go and prove yourself to the level where you can't be ignored anymore. Where even if this Asian girl has only liked white guys historically, now she's perhaps thinking about you because there's this confident, good-looking Asian guy in the room that she hasn't really been accustomed to before.
Okay. That leads into my second talking point, which is going to have a lot of context, but bear with me. It'll, I guess, make sense in the final version. So, going back to Amped Asia, one of the models that's been on there is Victoria Mai Nguyen. Like, for me, I don't know if anybody who's watching knows her, but like for me, if you know me personally, if there was one that I could choose, Asian American woman, it would be her. But I know I have no chance. In any case, I've reached out to her several times to talk about this issue. Once when she came to New York City, she didn't say anything. She had a raffle going on in 2017 to see her at a photo shoot. She responded then when she got $20 out of me. But then when I reached out to her again, she didn't say anything. So I'm looking at her and I'm saying, okay, she's one in a different level than me, so she looks at me as somebody that's irrelevant. And two, probably doesn't want to discuss these issues because it would hurt her brand. Which is fine. I have no problem with that. The reason why I bring this all up, though, is because I recently saw her collaborating with Swoozie, who's one of the biggest black YouTubers out there. I've never seen her around black people from what I can see at all. When Swoozie puts the video up, her picture's there, she's commenting on it, but she's not promoting it at all. It concerns me that like somebody who's more savvy than the typical Asian woman who just would address these questions and then show their racism, somebody who is more savvy is looking at the situation and is saying to themselves, maybe if I calm people who are angry down by making myself look like I'm down with other people, by working with people that I normally wouldn't have worked with, I can profit off of all of this by getting more fans who I would never be attracted to, and make myself look like one of the good ones. You know what I mean? So I guess my issue is that, look, people like her don't owe me anything. You don't have to respond to people like me at all. But when your response is, rather than to just deal with your own life and date who you want to date, you want to look at this opportunity as a situation of virtue signal and make people who are rightfully angry at the racism look like they're crazy, kind of like the articles before. Like, that's where I have a problem personally. And it's not just her. I've had another issue before with somebody that I worked with that all of a sudden went on national TV and then went on a mock date with a black guy who was way lower on the food chain. That, come on. If you looked at that didn't make any sense. So I'm just worried about like the virtue signaling that I'm seeing. Again, date who you want to date, but then don't look at this as an opportunity to make yourself look like one of the good ones. You get what I mean?
So she was, yeah. So what? There was pushback against her because there was apparently she was racist against black people.
No. There's no pushback. She's never been like she's never really dealt with these issues before. She doesn't cover this type of stuff. She's just a super hot model that I'm saying that I've noticed has never been around black people, and now all of a sudden she's collaborating with somebody who's bigger than her, who's black, bigger than her online, and she's looking at this as a business opportunity, from my opinion, of just like, hey, You know, let me work with somebody that can push my name out there, who's black, and I get the best of both worlds. I get somebody who's pushing my name, and I get to be that one Asian girl that, you know, isn't really like that. But
when have you known, you know, Instagram models to be, you know, I guess models of what a citizen should be like? You know, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course she's gonna do that.
Yeah.
And that's like, I guess that's the key. That's like being mad that Kim Kardashian had sex on tape to become famous. Like, it's not the best way to get famous, but people are going to capitalize on it. And what can you do about it? You know, as you said, you're irrelevant in her eyes.
Yeah.
And not just you, but all her fans.
Yeah.
But also, does she have to be attracted to her fans? Obviously, the point of fandom isn't the actual individual fan. It's the total number of fans that she's able to show off on her Instagram.
Yeah.
Right? Total number is the only thing that matters to her and to people like her.
Yeah.
One response to that, I guess, is to, you know, call it out, whatever, hypocrisy. But I leave that world alone because, sure, everyone, it is annoying that people virtue signal. But people are going to do that no matter what. And if you leave that world alone, I think that it's just a healthier option to your own life and to your own sanity.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, just, you know, what are the chances of, I don't know if this is relevant, but, you know, if eventually, let's say she responded to you and then now she wanted to go on a date with you, would you go on a date with her?
No, I would hope I'd be strong enough not to, because I know what that's about, and I know that that's somebody that's incredibly high maintenance that will probably dry my bank account and isn't worth it in the long run, although she is incredibly attractive. But what I get...
None of these girls who are now, you know, famous for taking their clothes off and showing pictures of themselves, 600 pictures of themselves in different angles. None of these girls make good wives. And I don't know where this fits in, but that someone should say it. And so fawning over them, yeah, that's fine. But, you know, I don't know about their own individual happiness after this runs dry.
Yeah. I guess because the overall concern that I have isn't necessarily even it's a virtue signaling. It's the people who are unaware of, like, the trends of what's going on. These people on the opposition are going to use the, I guess, unawareness, or for lack of a better term, ignorance of the whole situation to try and spin this and make themselves look like they're the victim and say, hey, I don't see what's going on. And there are little tricks like this that go on, whether it be the flipping on Amptasia or the models who now all of a sudden they're working with black YouTubers. It, you know, to the naked eye, it looks like there's nothing going on over here. And that just, I don't know. I feel like there's been progress that's been made in terms of at least acknowledging this issue that wasn't around 5 years ago. And I would hate to see that progress go away. Even though we need to all work on ourselves, I'd hate to see that progress go away by virtue signaling. Like, is that all it takes to just get the, you know, everybody back to sleep again? You know what I mean?
Well, at least in this example that you gave, I don't know. It seems fair. I don't know the full context maybe, but it seems fairly innocent that she chose to collab with, you know, you said she's never collabed with a black person before.
Never. Not to my knowledge.
But if she does, you know, eventually the first time she does it would be the first time.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you look at that as almost a progress? Or do you automatically know it's straight virtue signaling or trying to get a bigger fan, trying to attract a different fan base?
It can be. Listen, there's a chance that it can be that there's something over here. But, like, you know, as somebody that has really, like, seen the bullshit long before it became even somewhat mainstream, and to know that a lot of the very hot Asian women are always thinking about business instead of, like, actual issues, I think it's safe to err on the side of caution. Like, These are people that had no reason whatsoever to care about these issues when the narrative was in their favor. So to now all of a sudden act like they're progressive when these people have never shown a sign that they cared about that when the narrative wasn't in their favor, we have to be cautious. I think we have to be cautious. And I mean, that's from my experience, because I'm very cynical when it comes to these issues. I don't trust Asian women a lot when they say these things. Like, look, I interviewed somebody who was a Chinese woman who went against her parents. She put up a video saying, look, they told me not to date black guys. I don't agree with them. I'm totally against that. I'm about being open to anything. That I trust, because there's no reason, there's no business aspect to it that makes it seem like you have an angle.
Right.
But, sorry?
Yeah, there's no incentive for them to say that.
But if you're a super hot Asian model who has only stayed in her echo chamber of Asians, to my knowledge, and now all of a sudden is looking to a black YouTuber who's bigger than you, who probably doesn't know the whole thing that's going on, whatever, to promote your brand, I'm thinking, yeah, it could just be that it could just be a business opportunity. She's not seeing race. But I'm thinking that Asian women, some of them are very calculating, and they see what's going on out here, and they're saying, how do I combat this? Do I combat this by writing articles saying, hey, I'm not a hypocrite when I truly am, or I'm a racist, not a racist when I truly am? Or is it to pander to people who don't know and virtue signal so that I have that in my back pocket, and I don't take the heat for all the shit that's going on? Like, that just seems more likely given how cunning they were in the beginning when they didn't want to address their own hypocrisy, and now it's so bad that they have to address it. Like, are they not cunning enough to try and use people who are unaware of their bullshit to try and dodge the whole situation? I know that seems a little bit convoluted or complex, but I mean, this is just my experience. I think that Asian women can be very, very, very calculating, and I don't think it's, given that we're having this conversation right now, it's not out of the blue or like too crazy to think that there may be some kind of agenda here, because they always have an agenda, in my opinion. But I'm just very cynical. What do I know? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I believe that, yes, women will ultimately have their agenda, but which is like an evolutionary habit that they picked up, right, in order to survive, for the best chance of survival for their offspring. But, that's why I go back to the realism part. Like, that's just how they're going to be. Mm-hmm. And you have to choose how you want to respond to that situation.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, my experiences have made me very jaded. So I understand, like, somebody who looks at that and says, it is what it is. I respect that. But I'm just on alert for everything that's going on. But I'll move on from that. Just a couple more questions, because I know we've been going on for a while. Do you know of any other men, Asian or not, who are able to overcome their racial obstacles to date the women that they want?
Do I know other men
who've been able to transcend their race?
You mean personally?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good question. I don't have an answer for you there. I can't think one way or the other. I guess I've known a couple of Asian guys who grew up with mostly white people and who hang around mostly white people to this day, and I guess probably are dating white people as well. But I wouldn't call that transcending race. That's more so just being whitewashed. But it does take, I will admit this, that in this society, for Asian guys, for instance, to date outside of Asian, especially white, which is cream of the crop here. And not because of any objective reality about white people, but because they're the majority. And that's the country we live in. So that's that's why they're on this pedestal compared to other races, because they're just the majority and they run everything. For an Asian a male to date a white girl, a good-looking white girl, for instance, that takes some, I guess, unique or special talent. The guy must be really good-looking or have something going on for him, because of the inherent dynamics between Asians and white people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 3 more questions. Outside of dating, how has your life changed since you stopped focusing on your race?
It's not that I don't focus on my race. You know, I'm happy to be Asian. I love being Asian.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I guess the difference is with transcending is like you're not letting it define you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're moving beyond the conversations of race on like a metaphysical level, you know, about like Hollywood and, you know, race, the way that they portray Asians in the media. Like, who gives a shit? The fact that you even care what Hollywood thinks means that you care what white people think, which means you're putting white people above your own self, your own race of people. So actually, my call for Asians to transcend was actually an empowerment play, for them to say, hey, stop putting white people above you by exalting their opinion and worshiping everything that they think, caring so much what they think about you. And I guess doing that in my own personal life, aside from dating, has helped for me to be on a even playing field. Because when I was younger, I totally cared about what they thought about me, white people in general. You know, I guess when you're younger, you care what everyone thinks. But I guess I do remember that, you know, it was important to gain white people's approval when I was young. And for me to think how I think now, which is almost like this, it's not a man going his own way type of thing, but it's like you're your own person. You're really your own individual. That's empowering. And now I'm not really giving into what they, you know, for instance, a white person cares about me because of his or her race. If I care about that person's opinion, it's because I care about them on an individual basis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I guess there's that freedom there. And I think that's really, that's been a massive shift in my life.
Okay. What do you have to say to Asian women who are hypocritical? Like, do you have any thoughts about them in terms of what you would say, or do you just, it is what it is?
Well, on the one hand, it is what it is, but I do have something to say to Asian women who, you know, experience a little bit of self-hate probably. And they know who they are. You know, I experienced a lot of self-hate when I was growing up, and that's not really your own fault. You know, a lot of it is just the fact of where you grew up. If you grew up in like a white suburb and you're the only Asian kid and everyone made fun of your lunch and the way that you smell or your clothes or the way you look when you were a kid, a lot of that self-hate is going to be internalized and really not your own choice. So I can empathize with that. But what I would say would be, like, you know, you're the last living ancestor from thousands and thousands or hundreds and thousands of years of a bloodline that essentially has ended at this point with you. And that's important, I think. And I think this whole ancestor stuff that Asians care so much about, I can see why it's important. Tradition, legacy. And I guess I would ask Asian women to initiate a path of self-discovery, because they may see something that they haven't seen before. So I would say, you know, go take a fucking trip to Asia if you haven't before. And not really with your white friends or whatever, but do so with your family or yourself. And just open your mind a little bit to that. So see where I'm coming from. It's not a place of like hatred or animosity towards them. it's an empathetic, it's almost an empathetic plea, because I can understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, you're still asking them to look beyond what they think they know. And I think actually going about it that way would make a big difference in moving the needle, as opposed to if you come from a place of animosity and just saying, hey, you're wrong, hey, you're being hypocritical, because people just don't listen to that when you go about it that way.
I can just to add a note. It's not a talking point. Like I see where you're coming from with that. I guess for me personally, it's just that there's different layers to it. Like you have the advantage of the ancestry. Like somebody who's black or Hispanic, there's like that racial hierarchy issue, and I feel like that extra layer, at least for me, adds a level of, I guess, animosity to the whole situation, where it's more difficult for somebody like me to empathize or not want to point out these issues with, I guess, a sense of kindness, or more of a sense of like cruelty of like, no, this is BS. You know what I mean? I think it's different in that regard. I have no problem with the way you look at it. I think it would be better if people weren't so jaded about this particular subject. But that racial hierarchy, I think on my end, adds another layer to the conversation when it comes to trying to talk to people who it's not just that they think that you're unattractive because of the media, but they think that you're unattractive because they're beneath you or you're beneath them. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean. There were a few or a handful of blacks and Hispanics that I came across in Asia. Some who did okay in dating and some who did not. I would say that the deck is stacked against those people. Then you have to look at it and say, well, what are you going to do about it? You just have to work harder, and that's not a pretty answer. It's not like a progressive liberal answer, but I guess that's probably the most realistic answer that you can come across. You just, like, if you were dealt a shittier deck, and I guess if Asians are the ones that you like, and you still want to pursue them, you're gonna have to just work harder.
So this leads to my final question. What do you have to say to men, particularly Asian men, who have the discrimination has really gotten to their head and they've gone deep into like the manosphere, MGTOW, or even deeper, Incel?
That's a good question, and I don't know if you or your audience has seen the movie Midnight in Paris. It's a Woody Allen movie, and Owen Wilson stars in it. And there's a really, really fantastic quote that comes from that movie that I think really applies to this question that you just asked.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, Owen Wilson's character is an author, and he writes a book, and he gives his book to Gertrude Stein, this famous, art figure from the 1920s. And she reads the book through the manuscript, and she has only one piece of advice for Owen Wilson's character. And she says that, you're a great writer, however, your character's very nihilistic, he gives up easily, I can tell in the voice. And then she says, it's the artist's job not to succumb to despair, but to find an antidote to the emptiness of existence. Don't be such a defeatist. And I think that quote really, really speaks to the question that you just asked. Because I guess there's a growing number of people who become MGTOWs, or what are the other terms? Incels?
Incels, MRAs, manosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of them are just giving up. And I would say that that's not the answer. As Gertrude Stein said in the movie, it's your job to find the antidote to the emptiness of existence, or in this case, your job to find the antidote to, your problems of dating, or society in your own personal way. And I did the same thing. I had to find that antidote. And that's, for me, that started with working out. And I would say to these people that I think the easiest thing you can do, and you can start it tonight, is to start lifting weights and working out. Getting into a regimen where you're working out, consistently 3 to 4 times a week. Because a lot of, let's face it, MGTOWs and Incels and all these people, I guess one thing that they haven't overcome yet is their looks. Or if you look like Brad Pitt, you probably won't be an Incel, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing you can start changing immediately, before you even change your state of mind, perhaps that will come later on, but seeing results in your body, I think that would spark a massive shift in confidence in the way you think. And I think that serves as a starting point. Not the be all end all, not the final solution, but a starting point to finding that antidote. I guess I would also say that, and I said this before, but I really want to reiterate it, that for women, attraction has nothing to do with the brain or academics or the world of the theoretical, in the world of knowledge. Attraction happens below the neck, in the heart, and even further below that. And so what that means is that it's a physical sensation, it's a feeling, it's a connection, and that does not happen by academically pointing out the injustices or the imbalances of white male, Asian female dynamics, for instance. It happens by you just becoming more attractive in the way that we know women to find men attractive in.
And you just got to deal with that.
And it's all about intention. If you want to be Martin Luther King, then you can. Then that's the game you got to play. But if you just want to attract women and get out of that shell as a MGTOW or Incel, whatever, then you got to play their game. And the funny thing is, it'll become your game. Because I will say this: I went from not getting any girls to having, it's unbelievable what has changed. Not just my own life, but it also happened at the same time as the new dating infrastructure, which was social dating, the dating apps that came about. And I was able to, I guess, exhibit the transformation of who I am online, which has led to, the dating frequency that I've been able to attain has just been ridiculous in the last couple of years. So initially you're playing their game, it'll become your game.
I mean, that's sound advice. That to know that there is a way out of it, and I think that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you was because in times of a white male, Asian female, to see somebody who's been able to overcome that, I do want to point that out, the bullshit that Asian women do, but to show somebody who's overcome that to date women of all races, I think is also important. So I want to thank you for answering my questions and giving me your time.
Hey, Raphael, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem.